We welcome you to Discovery Shakespeare. Today's episode will be focused on King Lear. Join us in a 15-minute adventure as we analyze the power struggles in the play, flattery, materialism, human nature, and sin. Before we get into the play, let's introduce the infamous Shakespeare. William Shakespeare, a man born in 1564 to a successful middle-class glovemaker in Stratford-upon-Avon, England. His career bridged the reigns of Elizabeth I, who ruled from 1558 to 1603, and James I, who ruled from 1603 to 1625. He was a favorite of both monarchs. King Lear was likely written in 1605 or 1606, and it was directly influenced by the tale of the mythical Celtic Lear of Britain.
The central topic in the play is the shift and balance of power as it is being handed down. Lear was the king. At the time, the king had absolute power and was regarded as a demigod, similar to the church. There was a clear and distinct segregation between the different classes in the social hierarchy. His daughters, being the next generation, were eager to inherit the power and wealth that their father had. The reason why so many countries today do not use a monarchy is because they are notorious for creating problems. The cardinal problem is the shift of power from the older generation to the younger generation. The younger generation in the play are eager to amass power. In order to gain power, Goneril and Regan lie to the king when he asks them to express their love for him. They readily seize this opportunity to inadvertently show how much they desire his land. Cordelia, on the other hand, says nothing, which subsequently angers Lear. This leads to her disownment. This power struggle between the young and the old has historically ruined entire countries, especially in ancient China.
Nothing will come of nothing. Speak again.
Lear's initial demand for flattery is a very unusual and misguided course of action. If there were a government that consisted of more than one person in absolute control, a more rational procedure of dividing up the land could have materialized instead of such a crude and easily defeated method. With more people involved in a decision-making process, the chance of everyone agreeing to an obvious mistake is slim to none. Shakespeare's King Lear illustrates one of the cardinal problems of a monarchy. A single ruler will make mistakes carelessly and stubbornly. The king was so full of himself that when his advisor Kent spoke up for Cordelia, he banished him.
Another problem associated with a monarch is inheritance. Being the offspring of a king, each daughter expects to inherit a great deal of power, land, and wealth. The trouble with this is that because the daughters have been born into this wealth, they would not appreciate it as much as someone who had worked for the wealth themselves. This materialism shows when Goneril and Regan respond to Lear's demand for love.
I love you more than words can wield the matter. Dearer than eyesight, space, and liberty. As much as child e'er loved or father found. A love that makes breath poor and speech unable. Beyond all manner of so much. I love you.
It is evident when Goneril and Regan plot to dissolve Lear's 100 Knights that they love what Lear has given them more than Lear as a father.
You take her by the hand.
Why not by the hand, sir? Have I offended? All's not offense that indiscretion finds.
Overall, the idea that offspring are guaranteed to inheritance has made Goneril and Regan materialistic and political, driven by the sole purpose of amassing wealth.
Lear is insecure. He desperately seeks approval from his own daughters, something most fathers wouldn't need to do. In addition, he wants to keep his entourage of 100 knights with him while he stays at each of his daughters' castles. These knights are synecdoche for his ego, and when Regan asks him, rhetorically, why he needs even one, he responds in a fit of rage because dissolving his knights means revealing his insecurities.
Yet the double 5 and 20, thou art twice her love.
Hear me, my lord. What need you 5 and 20? 10 or 5? To follow in a house where twice so many have a command to tend you.
What need 1?
It means that there would be fewer people around him to make him feel important. Shakespeare uses the number of Lear's knights to denote his prowess in numerical terms. This illustrates just how dependent Lear is on his material goods and not on his actual abilities.
Nature needs not what thou gorgeous wearest.
Nature is referenced a plethora of times in the play. Many of the characters look to nature for fairness and fortune. At first, Edmund begs nature to help him on his journey of gaining more power by taking it from his father and brother.
Thou nature art my goddess. Bastardy. Base. Who in the lusty stealth of nature take more composition and a fierce quality. Now gods, stand up for bastards.
Interestingly, Lear also refers to nature when he wants his daughters to be sterile.
Into her womb convey sterility. Dry up in her the organs of increase. And from her delicate body never spring a babe to honor her.
This devotion towards nature and the hopes that nature will grant one's wishes shows how little was understood, scientifically, about the natural world at the time of writing. Shakespeare was likely referencing the Renaissance boom in scientific understanding and how the older, represented by Lear, believed in supernatural occurrences to grant their wishes, while the younger, represented by Edmund, believed in actions for achieving his goals. Overall, it can be inferred that Shakespeare wanted to impart that only actions can produce results, and although nature can sometimes produce favorable outcomes, one's path is mostly controlled by oneself.
This is the excellent foppery of the world, that when we are sick in fortune, often the surfeits of our own behavior, we make guilty of our disasters the sun, the moon, and stars, as if we were villains by necessity, fools by heavenly compulsion, knaves, thieves, and treachers by spherical predominance, drunkards, liars, and adulterers by an enforced obedience of planetary influence, and all that we are evil in by a divine thrusting on. An admirable evasion of whoremaster man to lay his goatish disposition to the charge of a star.
Here, Edmund mocks the older generation's reliance on the supernatural. Here's one of the most prominent quotes of the play.
I am a man more sinned against than sinning.
Let's take a closer look. First off, is Lear even a man? I mean, he's the oldest character in the play, so physically he's farther from a child than anyone else. But how does he act? Well, initially Lear is by far the most childish. While throwing a tantrum, he banishes both his favorite daughter Cordelia and his most loyal servant Kent in favor of the meaningless flattery of Goneril and Regan. He is manipulated like a child. Lear is so spoiled by his power that he can't go anywhere without someone to take care of him, whether it is his knights or Kent. So, from the first 4 words of his statement, I am a man, I would argue Lear is already wrong. Now, Has Lear been sinned against? Not exactly. Goneril and Regan are cruel daughters, but they didn't usurp King Lear. He chose to give up his kingdom. Well, they kicked him out of their houses, you could say. But wasn't Lear genuinely causing some trouble? It's not a very nice thing for his daughters to do, and I would agree that they owe him far more respect, but they broke no real promises and really stole nothing from Lear. How has Lear sinned? I'd say he hasn't really sinned either. Lear is a very old man who just wants some love from his daughters. We've already established that he's insecure. He's also a king who has been thoroughly spoiled by flattery from everyone trying to take advantage of him. Cordelia's statements and Kent's objection to her banishment are probably some of the very few occasions when anyone has ever stood up to him. It was foolish for Lear to banish them both, but you can't blame him for overreacting. He clearly regrets it later on as well. So, though this quote is thoroughly wrong, it is useful in showing the reality of Lear's situation and provoking some of these interesting ideas about it.
Less entity plainly, I fear, I am not in my perfect mind.
This play also exemplifies how poorly the inexperienced manage power. There is no question that Regan, Cornwall, and Goneril are nasty to Lear. They lock him out of the castle when there is a raging storm. Shakespeare could have also wanted to show how the sudden gain of power that the sisters experienced causes them to be ruthless and avaricious for more. They went from having no power to having absolute power, so it is understandable that they are eager to use it. It seems that they have a reason to be so callous to Lear, and that reason is because his entourage of 100 knights is too riotous, but they could solve the problem with a much less aggressive approach, such as politely offering servants to attend Lear in place of his knights. Instead, they banish Lear from the castle and leave him outside. It's like they're being disrespectful because they have the power to do so. It is likely that the daughters want him dead so they do not have to deal with a man who strikes others and with 100 rambunctious knights.
Lear's speech in Act 3, Scene 3 provides great insight into human nature.
My wits begin to turn muddy. Understand why our cold? I'm cold myself. Where is the straw? I fell in the heart of our necessities strange, and can make vile things precious. Can your hovel for a knave and fool? There's one part of my heart that's sorry, yet only.
Here, Lear is saying that the needs of man can overcome the antipathy towards things that are usually considered to be base, such as the hovel. He wants to impart that even the former king values a hovel when he has nothing. This natural progression, or rather abasement of standards, can be summed up by Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which states that physiological needs form the base for greater needs. When he says, "Art cold?" it is a clear indication that he starts to care about others, and, as a result, he reduces his pride. It is likely that he has never said such a thing before. In addition, Shakespeare can be comparing the needs of humans to those of animals, and how we are much more sophisticated. Animals are satisfied with only the basics of survival. Humans, on the other hand, well, we seek satisfaction on many levels. For example, self-actualization, esteem, and love and belonging. These differences in needs are what separates humans from animals. When Lear is in the hovel, Shakespeare was creating the image that he has been reduced to almost the level of an animal. Overall, it is interesting to observe how a king behaves when he is at the same level as a beggar. Shakespeare is likely implying that it is not necessarily who we are that determines how we act, but our environment that regulates how we behave.
So what have we talked about so far? We discussed the transition of power from the older generation to the younger, and how there are many implications if the procedure is not handled in the most rational of ways. We also mentioned the materialistic nature of humans that can materialize if there is a lack of substance, of character. The old pray to nature for good fortune, and while the younger do ask nature to help, they also take action themselves. Is Lear a man? We argued that he isn't. We also argued that he was neither sinned against, nor did he sin. Finally, the idea that the environment influences behavior more than anything else is explored and exemplified by Lear's actions out in the storm and in the hovel. Overall, King Lear is a thought-provoking play written to elicit multiple interpretations and nuggets of wisdom which are applicable even to this day.
I have a journey, sir, shortly to go. My master calls me. I must not say no.